Hello and welcome to the Core Advantage podcast. My name's Darren McInnes.
And I'm Jacob Tober.
On the podcast, we talk about all things sports science, strength and conditioning, and athletic development.
You'll find links, show notes, and references in the podcast details and also on our website.
So welcome to episode 151 of the Core Advantage podcast, correct? Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
It's very exciting.
Snuck up on us, that one.
Yeah, it did. So you had a great idea, Jacob, about what we could talk about today, which was, as we did at episode 100, we went through the first 100 and talked about what had changed, what we agreed with, further thoughts. You thought we might do the same thing for the last 50 as a bit of a summary.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, in episode 100, we actually did the first 50. So we only did from episodes 1 to 50 in episode 100.
Oh,
so there was a 12-month delay because episodes 90 to 99 would have been like, just what we said last time.
Yeah,
it's only been a month.
Yeah, right.
So nothing's changed. So we're sort of on a delay. And I'm looking through the list here, and we're actually on a 3-year delay from these episodes because of the various pauses and stops we've had to the show.
Because of our atrocious production schedule.
Yeah, for our poor media management.
I'm really sorry about
scheduling.
that, everyone. It's terrible. Anyway, all right. So should we do that?
Yeah, so the 10th of March 2017 was episode 51.
Let's see what's changed. Go.
I've got that one there. So we'll just I'll read out the title. We'll have a quick chat about what we talked about, and then we'll highlight anything that might have changed, anything that really has maybe cemented itself since then, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, beautiful. So episode 51 was preventing and rehabilitating hamstring strains. If I remember correctly, this is kind of a summary of a couple of hamstring segments that we'd done prior to that, and we sort of wrapped it all up together into one episode. Kick us off.
I think probably we've had more of an emphasis on both proximal and distal hamstring strength since then. That'll probably be one of the bigger changes, that sense of working the hammy from both ends. We were probably not quite hitting that as much. I think with our heavier staggered stance RDLs and stuff like that, that's probably a shift where we've moved. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm more in love than ever with the Nordics. I still think they're just an amazing way to get grunt strength in.
Just get the Newtons in, yeah.
Just get those Newtons in. But I think also hitting it from the top a little bit more with a staggered stance RDL and with stuff like that, I think that's a change that's been really good. There has been a study that came out that was really interesting. One of our interns shared it with us, which was questioning whether it's actually the eccentric component at all that is the thing. It's the benefit, questioning the architectural changes argument, and saying that maybe it's just that it's a really hard effort is that what matters. And so like a super maximal isometric, a super maximal eccentric, are kind of same.
Just the act of going 100%, just giving it absolutely like a true, because people throw 100% around a lot of the time. They're like, I'm going 100%. But actually 100% where you cannot work any harder pulling the knee together into flexion, that might be the true stimulus we're chasing.
Yeah, and the good thing is, in a practical term, you don't have to change much. You just change what you're talking about while you're doing it rather than what you're doing particularly. But it was interesting, that idea of just really what you really need is just that absolute massive grunt strength. So that's probably the main changes for me. Anything else that maybe things like tantrums? We probably weren't doing things like that back then.
We weren't doing much in the way of velocity stuff that wasn't sprinting, because people talk a lot about the transition from your strength and your isometric work into high velocity, because speed is often where you do the hamstring injury. So adding that speed stuff with sort of tantrums in particular, but also like things like switching isometric straight leg bridges, where you kind of switch and sort of have to stiffen up really quickly through the hamstring into position is good stuff. But the tantrums in particular, thanks to Lockie and the guys up at Athletes Authority in particular for sort of shining a light on those for us.
Yeah.
We've been using those a bit more now. Yeah.
And probably we've been more cognizant of doing a little bit more. Geez, your table's rocking around a lot. What's going on there? Have you changed tables?
No, I've got a technology
I'm having to not
problem
look
with
at you
my
because
computer
I'm
at the
getting
moment.
motion sickness.
No, it's my laptop is in full spaz mode at the moment. The screen is flicking fluorescent pinks and stuff like that in the background. I'm trying to make it stop, but it's because my phone is sitting there. So I've got to find a new tripod for my phone.
Okay.
Carry on though.
I'll try to.
I might have to leave you in a monologue on our next episode and go get a new tripod because my computer was not happy with that at all.
Yeah, I think one of the other things was just doing more time under tension work on your straight and your slightly bent leg bridge work as well. Just getting a sort of moderate threshold load into that area as well, and being able to do single leg stuff. I think that's one of the other things that we probably paid more attention to lately. So it's Nordics plus your lifting plus isometrics.
Nice.
Cool.
All right. Episode 52. This one's a juicy one. It was ice baths, yay or nay. We tore shreds off that blog article that they wrote. I'm going to let you start that. I'm going to go get a better tripod.
Okay. Look, that was a great article. It was an article where it said that you shouldn't do ice baths because there was negative implications, but actually it was a complete misquote on the study. If you read the study itself, it didn't have the negatives that it was purported to in the media. So it was a classic case of people not reading the study. And the central concept is that if you ice bath all the time, you will prevent inflammation. And if you prevent inflammation, then you're actually preventing part of the adaptive response to your training load. So in many ways, the worst thing you could do for training is ice bath after every single session, because you're keeping those inflammatory markers down, and inflammation does lead to strength in that sense. But yeah, the study was just a classic case of you've got to read the study, you've got to think it through. It was just a bit of clickbait that a whole lot of people just ran with and were saying, oh, you shouldn't ice baths. Like, actually ice baths after a key competition when you've got a short turnaround, amazingly beneficial, like zero problem at all. And yeah, super good thing to do, but just not a good thing to do every single day. I think that was,
and that's exactly what the study said.
Yeah.
It may be beneficial, mostly psychological, but that's about it.
But in terms of actual downside, yeah, it's not. Wasn't what they said.
Not as much as they thought. Yeah.
If you were going to pick one of our ones to listen to, if you were going to pick one of our ones to listen to think about how the media thinks about science, that would be the one I would pick, because it's got broad implications for pretty much everything you read about COVID-19, about all these things. Because journos are just looking for a juicy story, and they will try and cram in whatever science they can see that can fit in with their juicy story. And that's their job. Their job is to attract eyeballs to their media.
Sell papers, sell subscriptions.
They can sell advertising. So yeah, anyway, I like that one. I think I put my glasses on for that one as well. That was how serious it was.
That might have been around that time, yeah. All right, episode 53, why we stretch before every training session and game and why you should too. I stand by that 100%.
Yeah, a gentle dose of stretching, not a developmental dose, just a restorative reset of the body. I still think is just magic. I think that the benefits you get, provided you're stretching the right muscles, so you're not going to do heavy stretching for the calves, you're just going to use it to unlock tight muscles. I stand by that, 100%. I think the world will still catch up on that one. I think we're spot on with that, and I think our astonishingly low injury rate is testament to the fact that that's a part of the puzzle. It's not the puzzle, but it's a part of the puzzle.
It's not the only thing, yeah. It's one of those things where the nuance and the details of it are what matters. And again, when you think about media, nuance and details, I don't want to read past the headline and the tag. I just want to, just tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
It's like, to know it, you need to dig a little deeper and you need to understand the nuance of how muscle spindles react and all that kind of stuff and how to hit them in the right ways and the right muscle groups for sport-specific movements. So we're still stretching. We still do it all the time. It's a very similar routine to what it used to be. We're still avoiding big prime mover biarticular muscles, and we're hitting those sort of accessory ones and those ones that get overloaded by overuse stuff.
Yeah, and it's very gentle. It's gentle. It's gently requesting flexibility rather than demanding it. It's restorative, not developmental. It's just a really, really gentle loosen off to undo those tightness patterns. Yeah.
Yep, spot on. 54. Does lifting weights stunt growth? We had a little purple patch here, didn't we, with the podcast? 3 or 4 really good episodes in a row.
Yeah.
Does weightlifting stunt growth?
I'll tell you what's interesting is in the traditional sense, absolutely not. So, this whole thing came about because some athletes were lifting really, really heavy loads, doing Olympic lifts, and they injured themselves as juniors and stunted their growth plates. And so I stand by that. That's still the truth, that if you actually make your muscles, if you've got twins and one of them doesn't train, one of them, like identical twins, one of them doesn't train, one of them does, the one that does train will actually have better ability to absorb kinetic energy when they run, cut and jump, and therefore they're going to actually have safer growth plates because their growth plates are going to be not having to absorb the kinetic energy, the muscles will. But I guess where I've come around to this one is what I am seeing is a terrifying amount of strength and conditioning coaches who don't know better loading kids up with really young kids with really big weights and basically then just telling everyone to stuff off because this is great. Like I am seeing a bit of that.
Yeah, there is a bit of that, sort of the sub 14-year-olds, like under year 8s kind of kids who are being flaunted around Instagram with double body weight and 1.5 times body weight, deep squats and deep deadlifts. And it's like...
you've got to keep it age... I think it's got to be age appropriate. Like if you are 10, 11, 12 or 13, yes, some resistance training is going to be wonderful for your body, particularly at the top end of that, like 12 and 13-year-olds. But your bones, you're not going to damage your growth plates, but I reckon you're a good chance to create a deformity in someone's cervical vertebrae with all that load.
If you're too aggressive.
Yeah. Like if someone's spine is bending under the load that they're doing. So it's just that thing of age appropriate and not maximum. I don't think it's like that minimal effective dose thing. Like I think what I'm seeing is a number of coaches pushing the idea that, no pain, no gain, you've got to push really hard. In terms of resistance training, I don't think that's good with the young ones. I think that's like chugging a litre of medicine rather than 3 mil. Like
having the right amount.
Get the right dose. The people are being, young athletes, I think, are starting to go the other way too much and being sometimes a bit overdosed on the load. Particularly in this current home gym era too, where you've got a lot of athletes training with their older brother, their uncle,
older
their
sister,
dad, their sister, whoever it might be, and kind of being egged on. And I mean, not that boys need to be egged on much anyway, but maybe the girls.
They'll do it anyway.
Self-egging. But I think that's an issue as well. I think you're going to see more people probably potentially injure themselves and then blame lifting when it was... It's like that thing when it was just bad. It was bad lifting rather than lifting itself. It's like the thing when someone crashes a Porsche. Like you don't go, Porsches are crap. You go, that guy was being an idiot.
That guy was a bad driver. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah.
So the right amount of strength.
Sorry, you go.
The right amount of strength training is good, but it can still be overdone. Like it's not like as long as we're in Olympic lifting, we can just go ham with everyone.
Yeah.
You do still need to be nuanced and like those juniors, they reach their ceiling for their age a lot earlier than an adult would. So they reach, a 1 times body weight lift or 50% of body weight lift because they're lighter as well. You got to remember that's a less absolute load as well because they're smaller humans. And then they just work on the quality of that. Do it really well, work on the other stuff, work on your movement skill. Yeah.
Like a 10-year-old shouldn't be squatting more than 10 kilos. Like that's about the right place for a 10-year-old. 11, 12, 13-year-olds, you can do a little bit more, but not much. Like, let's not go crazy. I think a 13-year-old who's strong and good, and let's say they weigh 50, well, maybe you can take them to 40 if they're crushing everything. But I'm not interested in exceeding body weight for those young athletes. I think there's plenty of time for that later. Save that for later.
Yeah, and it also depends on we're talking in chronological age, but biological age too. Some kids are 13, but they've got 16-year-old bodies.
Yeah.
Other kids are 15 and they've got 12-year-old bodies because they're hitting puberty at different rates and different times. So that will change what load is appropriate for them. So we've had 13-year-olds that come in, they're like, oh, you're bigger and more developed than some of our 16-year-olds. You're kind of good to go in terms of your bone structure. So those ones, it's a little different for those ones.
A little.
Again, you want to be conservative though. Still,
Yeah,
you're talking about bones and bodies. Yeah.
Because it's not like that means you can't train hard in every aspect. You can attack walking lunges, single leg squats, glute bridges, push-ups, chins. There's all these things you can attack. It's just really coming down to, are you really getting that axial load, that load down through the spine, dialed in appropriately for their age?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next up, we talked about complexity and over-programming and too much stuff going on in your gym programs when it comes to strength and conditioning. Just trying to do everything and the kitchen sink every time you step in the gym.
And just as you say that, I see Trez joining us. And hey, Trez.
Trez, we've been meaning to talk to you.
Look, Trez is a young man. He's experimenting in the world of exercises, and he's throwing everything in the kitchen sink at himself at the moment. But the good thing is, because we see you, Trez, we see your Instagram account. The good thing is that he's doing it all with bands and nothing crazy. So that's the good version of it. It's not harmful stuff, and it's a time for variety is more required because you're in lockdown. But I still I'm
still seeing. Hang on Trez's. I'm still seeing a lot more rotating, crunching core exercises than I'd like.
Really?
Though.
Okay. Yeah. Anti-rotation.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that later.
Yeah. There's a lot of twisting on compressed spines and flex spines that I would prefer to see done either on a ball or not done at all, or at least in a different ratio compared to the anti-motion core training.
Yeah, we want to think of the core as an anti-motion structure rather than a structure for flexion and rotation simultaneously. Like rotation without the flexion's arguable. You can go, it's not too bad, but you mix the two together, and it's literally how they demonstrate how to get spinal fluid, how to get disc fluid to leak out of a disc is you flex it and you twist it.
Repeatedly, yeah,
under fatigue. So I think that podcast stands. I think there is this trend. I'm not sure if we talked about it there, but I don't think we did. This is a new thing that you talked about more recently, which is that we're talking about this on Instagram, so this is a bit meta. But one of the problems about Instagram is it has turned strength and conditioning into a trick shot competition, where you want to show
it's dude perfect.
Yeah,
it's become dude perfect. Yeah,
I don't even know what that is, but I'm just agreeing with you. What's dude perfect?
Dude Perfect is a YouTube channel. They went pretty viral a few years back, where they would just do a whole video full of trick shots.
Right.
It was just a series of them looking like they never missed.
Oh yeah, I saw them.
Days
Yeah,
to
cool.
film it and stuff like that. Yeah, they do golf ones and frisbee ones and all kinds of stuff.
Amazing.
And they kind of were the start of like Instagram's like no one's posting their 10 perfect free throws in a row. They're all posting their over the head, through the legs, in a moving car type stuff, like the crazy stuff.
Yeah, where
it gets people to watch.
Whereas if you're watching The Last Dance at the moment, which is the Chicago Bulls doco, one of the hallmarks of
so good,
so interesting. One of the hallmarks of Phil Jackson's training was they practiced chest passes. Like you had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen practicing chest passes.
Yeah.
And so Instagram has created kind of an arms race of trick shottery, where everyone's trying to do fancy different stuff because that's what gets you attention. And so I think that has fueled this hunger for reinventing the wheel and moving away from the fundamentals of push, pull, twist, those hinge, those real fundamental things that you need to be doing to actually become a better athlete. So I stand by that need for keeping it focused and keeping it to the stuff that's going to give you the results. And
like the thing that really gives you results is doing the same thing and each week doing it a little bit better, doing an extra rep, a couple more seconds, 1 more kilo, 2 more kilos, an extra set, whatever it might be. Progressive overload is where adaptation's created. If you want to lift a heavier weight, then we need to lift a heavier weight to make you stronger, which will then translate to jumping performance. So, progressive overload of the same stuff, mastery of the same things is really the key there. And if you're constantly changing a program every 4 weeks, you never get a chance to really master stuff. And so it's balancing those. It's having your staples, having your meat and potatoes that you really focus on, and then putting some stuff around the periphery to keep you engaged
bit of
challenge different things, a bit of flavor, and work on different things that you want to do, a little bit of hypertrophy work or conditioning or fun stuff. But don't let that become the emphasis and become the central thing of your program.
Yeah.
That should just be, like we talked about, the periphery, the extras, the stuff you add on the end.
The heart of the program has to be your really good stuff, your meat and potatoes, the stuff that's going to make you way, way better. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that the relevance and need for that has only gone higher and higher. Like that's just going to get more and more important. And I think it's a chance for S&C coaches and athletes to really benefit from going against the grain. If everyone else around you is playing around with fluff and you are attacking the fundamentals, you're going to dominate them. Not in likes and follows, not in encouragement from people telling you how cool you are, just in beating people, which is
athleticism and durability and all this one, all the important stuff. Yeah, nice. Now we beat up on Trez there a little bit, but I have been seeing some of his stuff is really, really good. He's been doing he's banded core lifts and his rear foot elevated split squats and some good stuff and heaps of hammy work. So keep that up, Trez. So it's not all bad.
And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Talk about that.
Yes.
Missed that guy.
Yeah.
All right, episode 56, core lifts versus deadlifts. Why we don't do the straight bar conventional deadlift as much as we do the trap bar equivalent or alternative.
Ooh, I think I've changed. So what was the date on this?
That was 3 years ago, so this is all 2017 stuff at the moment.
I more and more.
Back then we were just for context before you launch into that, Darren, we were pretty trap bar is the way we don't really do the deadlift at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a 95% kind of ratio type thing.
And I still think trap bar is the way for 80% of people. But I think where I'm at, and we were still in that phase of a lot of experimentation on how could we get people, what was the quickest way to get people to a beautiful loaded hinge? Because if someone has an exquisitely good loaded hinge, you've won. Like they will become an amazing athlete. If they can, you just take that, you add, a percentage of load every week for 12 to 18 months, they will be amazing. I think where I'm feeling about it now is that sometimes the beauty of a straight bar is it provides a constraint because your knees are going to smash into the bar if you do it wrong. If you do a low-handed squat, it's not going to work.
It forces you back in your hips. It forces you to load your posterior chain more and forces you back in your glutes and your hamstrings.
So as a teaching tool, more and more I feel like it should be on the pathway for 80 to 90% of athletes should be doing it to learn how to do a great hinge. And then once they've learnt that with a little bit of weight, then you flip it and you put them onto a trap bar and then you just go for it because they've got that shape. So it's a bit of a change on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, but when we talk about going heavy and getting after the loads, for the majority of athletes, the majority of sports, the trap bar is going to be a safer, easier position where they can get a more sport-specific load and hit a more explosive shape and more.
And most importantly,
the deadlift,
it's a little bit higher off the ground. So the 90% of the risk in a deadlift lives in the bottom 10 centimeters because the bar is so low. Just that extra, 10 centimeters that the handles provide.
3 or 4 inches, not much.
Not much. I think that's a huge thing because you've cut out most of the risk without cutting out much of the benefit, if any.
Cool. Episode 50. Moving on.
We should say a quick Iron Edge plug too. The Trap Bar 2.0. If we're going to talk about trap bars at all, we don't talk about that bar. I think we are doing ourselves a disservice. I love that bar so much. I'm actually going to steal the one. I'm at the gym today and I'm going to steal it because gym's closed and take it home and have a little bit of a play with it because I was playing with it in here last week. Jeez, it's good. There's so much good stuff you can do with it. I think it's now become my single best piece of equipment that I would suggest you own. It's just great.
Yeah. If you only got room for one thing, get a 2.0 because you can do a lot more. You can do most of the 1.0 versions, but you can add a few more things around the edge, so like lunges and the split stance stuff.
Shoulder press.
With it's really good.
You can do an awkward back squat with it. Kind
of like a safety bar wrapped around it.
Yeah, it's not that bad. There's so much you can do with it, and you can even have it under your bench if you're supersetting. Because one of my problems is I've got a tiny little gym, and I can't have my trap bar under my bench because it gets in the way. But because it's missing one side, it's more efficient in a tiny space. Yeah,
more modular, more IKEA.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
cool. All right, episode 57. We talked about netball. The title of the episode was just literally netball. if I remember, we talked about ankles, we talked about knees, we talked about change of direction.
Yeah.
We were talking about start, ACLs.
I don't think, the basic thing was you need to bulletproof them because it's the highest per capita knee reconstructions outside of the AFL. And don't bulletproof them by having a sport where you never run more than 8 meters at a time, by making them run 100 meters and tear muscles. So I think all of that stands. And what I would say too is that you actually you want to start, I think, to train netballers a bit like they would be basketballers or footy players in terms of preventative stuff if you're an S&C coach, because a lot of them are having a crack at footy and they're pretty unprepared for that. So if you got that hamstring development in early and that movement skill in early, I think that's you've done a wonderful thing.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Episode 58, we talked about athletics, carnivals, and team sport athletes. So team sport athletes, they tend to be all-rounders. So when it comes to the school carnival, they chuck them in the 100, they chuck them in the high jump, they chuck them in the shot put, and all of a sudden they have to do all these things which, it seems just athletic, seems like just normal stuff, but actually it's quite different for them relative to what they're used to doing if, say, they play a short court sport like netball or basketball or volleyball, something like that.
If anything, and our point was you need to prepare for carnivals as though they're a real thing. You can't just rock up on the day and then be surprised when you tear a quad. That was basically the summary of it. Yep. If anything, I'm stronger on that now, having trained a lot more swimmers over the last couple of years, because the biggest problem with the swimmers is they've got this amazing heart and lungs. So their engine is really good and their legs are really strong. They've got really good lactic acid tolerance. They can really run, but they've got so much power. They've got just enough power to get themselves into real trouble because an unfit, your typical person who's unfit, the limiting factor is their lack of fitness stops them from running to a point where they're going to tear stuff.
Or their lack of strength too.
Yeah, they just don't have it. Whereas the swimmers are this dangerous combo. And because they can literally not run all year and just rip one out and go really well. So yeah, more than ever, it's when you know your carnival's coming up, 6 weeks out, prepare for it. Even if it's just twice a week for 10 minutes, putting just a little pinch of the speed and distances roughly that you're going to be running on the day. So just getting some 400s under your belt, even 400s at an 80% intensity. Just
familiarity.
Just familiarising the tissues to those positions. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Jacob, I need you to pause. I've got to take my jumper off, so I've got to take my earphones out. I'm getting too hot. I turned the heater on, and it was a mistake. Hold on a minute.
Terrible mistake. That office gets toasty.
Sorry. It was really cold this morning, and I put thermals on, plus my t-shirt, plus my jumper, and then I put.
It's not that much of winter yet.
No, then I put the heater on in here, and yeah, it was just getting a bit much. I could see myself going.
Too far.
I'm colourblind, but I could see myself going pink, and I was like, yeah, that's no good.
All right, episode 59, we talked about limping. And what I remember this one well, is we talked about not just you roll your ankle and you limp around for a bit, but the flow-on effects that can have up the kinetic chain or down the kinetic chain, depending on where the injury is, of other things compensating and tightening and weakening and creating asymmetries and imbalances in your body that can last a lot longer than you think.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you've got a knee injury 12 months later, 6 months later because you rolled your ankle, but you don't put two and two together. And it's because you spend some time limping, you don't develop the dorsal, your hip flexor gets a little tight, and all of a sudden you're performing worse, and also your injury risk profiles change too.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people, when you trace back their injury history, it traces back to a rolled ankle. And they might be talking about their knee or their hip, but you actually can trace a direct lineage back to that rolled ankle. So that all stands. If anything, it's more important than ever, I think, to iron out those asymmetries and not push through. If you're moving wonky, then you're moving too much. You need to dial back the pace or the load a little bit so you can actually move with nice grace and symmetry, and then you'll heal nicely. Yeah.
Yep. Strength coaches, a chronological injury history is going to be really valuable there, and then a thorough movement and then a thorough assessment.
Yeah.
So if you're working with athletes, work out what your lead domino things are, and then assess those, check them out, and then correct them, and make sure you're measuring left and right separately so that someone can't, if someone's quite strong on their right, they'll find ways to hide those asymmetries and those weaknesses. So you've got to make sure you isolate them so that you can find them and then correct for them.
Great.
Nice. Episode 60 followed nicely onto that. We talked about balance training and how, again, Instagram tends to go over the top and do all this crazy stuff on wobble boards and Swiss balls and handstands and all kinds of crazy stuff. But then other people are like, it's ridiculous. Why are you wasting your time? Just lift heavy things. Well, it's like, no, you should still develop proprioception and all that kind of stuff, but just don't make, again, it's a periphery thing, but it's an important periphery thing.
If you're doing a 90-minute workout, 90 seconds of that is probably going to be on balance. But it's a really valuable 90 seconds. That's the thing. It's still really useful. Or if you can splice that into a couple of your other exercises so that you're getting a little bit of balance along with your strength, like a single leg RDL, that's great. Because you're tackling with the single leg RDL, you're tackling the balance, and you're tackling any disparities, any asymmetries from left to right. So it's a particularly good bang for buck one, and it's not costing any time.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yep. Keep doing your balance training, but don't go crazy on it.
Yeah.
Is still the headline there. Episode 61, we talked about nutrition fundamentals. But I think we should leave episodes 61 and 62 alone and just direct people to Dom's workshop from November last year.
Yeah.
And really the two workshops, the one she did last night and the one she's about to do in 2 weeks' time, which will all be available on our website very shortly.
I really enjoyed Dom's one last night. I thought it was the fundamentals done brutally well. It was really good just to explain exactly what's at play, what's happening. And if you saw the dot points of it, you go, oh, I know that. But just the way she walked you through everything, it enabled you to kind of join the dots for yourself about things, and it was really, really good. And that'll be available relatively soon because we've recorded it, but that's sometime in the next week we'll have that one up, won't we?
Well, it depends how Jacob's computer decides to play.
Tell everyone the story of your computer.
Yeah, so my touch bar's gone full spaz. It's gone full, just doing its own thing. It's like my puppy's just walking across it, doing his thing while I'm trying to type. So it's opening windows, it's closing windows, it's turning on iTunes, it's all kinds of stuff. So I think there might be a hardware thing in there that's going on. So I'm going in tomorrow to get it checked out. So hopefully it's nothing, and I can edit that video and get it up tomorrow night. Yeah. If it is a thing.
It's the worst when my computer's playing a bit funny at the moment as well, coincidentally. And normally I just take it to my brother and I'd go, what's going on here? And he'd sit in front of it for 10 minutes and fix it all. But I can't really do that at the moment. I'll look forward to see how your visit goes, and maybe I'll go and see your guy.
Yeah. So the better the computer is, the story that the better the computer ends up, the quicker we'll get that nutrition stuff out.
Okay.
Like it's not much work to be done, but it does require a laptop.
It does require ones and zeros. Okay. Next.
My favorite slide though from Dom's thing last night, I forgot to add in there, was the actual scientific difference between emotional eating and hunger eating. I was like, we always talk about you eat because you're sad or you eat because you're emotional or whatever it might be. But she actually had a slide and I was like, there's actually a list of things that categorize emotional eating versus actual eating for hunger and survival. I was like, I never actually thought that there were ways you could sort of hit it. And I was like, next time I'm hungry, I'm going to be like, all right, am I doing this, this, and this, or am I doing that, that, and that? So I thought that was a really good, particularly now in the lockdown, that was a really valuable slide for me.
Because I'm eating more than I need to in the lockdown. There's no two ways about it. I really liked the bit where she talked about, rather than worrying about taking stuff off your plate, don't try and exclude stuff from your diet. Just chase more, get more of the good stuff, and it'll force the bad stuff off the plate. I'm going to try that. I think I'm the one person who could challenge that, and I'd just do both. Because I'm a bigger eater than people realise. It was really good. Okay, so let's jump through to.
So that was 61, 62. Go see Dom's stuff for that. Yep. Let's go on to 63, which is where we talked about soccer.
And I will reiterate too that Dom is available for consults as well. One of the interesting things with nutrition is it gets a huge amount of people that want to hear about it, and then a very large people that have very strong opinions about what they know because they've been eating all their life, so they're an expert at eating. And then a really small minority of people who go, you know what, I'm going to get an expert to help me with this because I reckon this can go really well. And it always does. So Dom's there. She's available via Zoom. It's a great thing to use, I reckon. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Sure. Soccer. Let's talk soccer. I don't think much has changed there. In the same way that our netball stuff is pretty consistent, I think our soccer approach is with the sport-specific episodes, I think what's changed is our approach to specific things.
Yeah.
So, for example, with soccer, our new approach on hamstrings is going to be really relevant. And our new learnings in terms of tantrums and things like that is going to be really important. And the adductor stuff we've covered as well recently.
Yeah, I think the fundamental thing of soccer players need to do more strength. They don't have a strength culture. I think that's still relevant. I think it's getting better. I think probably what we talked about in that one about the problems of soccer not across the board embracing strength training. I think that's incrementally improving over time. But it's still a pretty big issue that they need to, get around the strength a little bit more because that will inform their agility and their power.
Yeah, nice. All right, episode 64, we talked about compression and compression garments.
Compression is still great. Continue with it. There has been more science that says it's great. Do it. That's it. Easy.
Yep. Recovery and during sport as well. So before, after, and during, it's all good stuff. And also, what's interesting in that space is a lot of people are looking at it as just being the proprioceptive effect of actually having something tactile on your skin is as much important as the blood flow and the compressed muscles and stuff like that. Just the feeling of being snug seems to do good things for the body.
Yeah, because it gives more biofeedback to the muscles and things just operate better.
Yeah, and the nervous system, exactly. All right, 65. We talked about fitness myths and quotes that seem legit but are actually ridiculous. I don't remember all of them.
No.
I remember one of them was no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Things in that vein.
Yeah, that all stands. I think there's a lot of people that were doing a lot of silly exercises a few years ago that have calmed down a fair bit now because they injured themselves permanently.
CrossFitters.
So there's been a lot less. Don't you reckon that's kind of hit its peak? And there's still great operators doing good work in that space, but it's not this. Oh, everyone should be doing this. Specific people, and the people that are doing it, I think, are getting smarter and smarter because they've learned to modify their. I think it seems to me that the initial explosion of enthusiasm created a blossoming of injuries, and now everything's calmed down a bit, and you've got a much better place on it. But still, those ideas of more is more. No, it's actually less is like the right dose at the right time in the right way is what you want.
Yeah. Be wary of things that rhyme. Be wary of things that alliterate. Be wary of things that sound to be too good to be true, because often it's like, just because Michael Jordan said it doesn't mean it's right. He wasn't a sports scientist. He's not a physiologist. He was just a really good athlete.
Yeah.
So be wary of things that just seem to just wrap everything up. My philosophy of training is just 6 words.
Well, and
I don't think you've thought about it enough.
And you just reminded me too, be really wary of following the stuff that LeBron James does and thinking it's all amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
So he posted a video. LeBron's a phenomenal athlete. There's no doubt about it. He's one of the greatest of all times. But his training leaves a lot to be desired. Or hang on, let me rephrase. His Instagram training leaves a lot to be desired. Yeah. Because again, we might just be seeing 10 minutes that he filmed at the end.
Yeah, we might.
We don't know the full picture.
We don't know the full picture. But what we do know is that his dedication to recovery, his dedication to nutrition, all these things are almost unparalleled. Like he budgets, $500,000.
He spends $2 million a year on his own chef and masseuse. Yeah.
He really does all that stuff amazingly. But some of the biomechanics of some of the things, it's like, you could do and you see people go, well, LeBron does it, therefore it's like, you know what, with that particular movement, in that particular case, he's gotten good despite some of those things, not because of them. So the same thing that's enabled him to be so durable is probably he's got really good connective tissue. Like he's got one in a million connective tissue where you could bash it with a hammer.
Him, Jordan, and Kobe all seem to be part of that 1 in a million. They played 80 games every single year.
Yeah. Like Jordan didn't miss a game till he broke his navicular. Didn't miss a game.
Through college or anything.
Yeah.
And then barely missed one after it either.
Yeah.
He was incredibly durable after that.
So don't follow cool looking sayings, and be careful about following cool looking people as well, because sometimes it's their genetic gifts that enable them to thrive rather than the mode of training.
Yep. So my friends, used to play basketball quite a bit, and I've got some friends who still play. And one of my friends shared one of LeBron's workout videos, and it was all the fluff on a Swiss ball. I was like, oh, cool. So he's doing a bit of that stuff on the end, whatever. Yeah. And my friend's like, check this out. And I was like, looks pretty dangerous. I'd steer clear. And he's going, what would you know? You're not LeBron James. And I was just like, oh. And there's no way you can go with that. You can't talk someone off that place. So it's just like, cool, you go do all that stuff. Yep. And don't listen to what the Soviets said or the Americans said after that. Anyway.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. All right, next.
Yeah. 66. Do you need to train to failure for strength and hypertrophy? I think we should just point people, since this has been made, we should just point people directly to the foundational series.
Yeah, it talks about it.
Which is the foundational series we have. There's a unit on the acute to chronic workload ratio, training to failure, and core training. So that core training one we talked about before, Trez, if you're still watching, jump onto the foundational series. You can get it for free on our website. Just search Core Advantage Foundational Series.
Three of the tastier bits of our online mentorship. So it's three good units that you can have a look at. Well worth a look, yeah.
Yep. And that covers, we talk in depth about the science and the research behind strength and hypertrophy, and how training to failure isn't always the best option. You actually want to be a little smarter about how you spread your sets and your reps out across a workout.
Now there's one improvement we've got planned for me to do some interjections into the lectures, like sort of the Durham sitting down the back of the room. One of my back of the room comments would be that you do have to be careful. People can misuse that science as an excuse to never train hard, particularly when they're in the earlier days when they're a bit on the weaker side. Because if you are a novice athlete, then you actually need to push a little bit more. If you never push yourself, you won't get any strength under your belt. So people, like anything, people can take it a little bit too far. And I reckon we present it so beautifully that there's a danger of There's a danger of people go, just cruise your way through it. We're not saying cruise. It's just it's
still got to grind. Still got to work.
You're grinding, but you've got to just leave a couple in the tank. So it's high intensity, leaving a bit in the tank. It's not just you're not just downhill skiing.
Yeah, nice. And I like your point about in the early days, because in the early days you've got, like, if your early days start at the age of 21. You're 5 years behind most people. Most people start in their teens, the good lifters. So you want to make up that room by pushing yourself pretty hard to get those neural adaptations as quickly as you can. Take advantage of newbie gains and push that for 6 months pretty hard. Don't take everything to failure and get all ugly and stuff like that. Still lift with good form and good technique. But yeah, like, you still got to lift with some intensity. That's a really good point, Durham, you make there.
Cool.
67, we talked about symptoms and causes with a specific reference to why hamstring injuries are actually more a glute problem than a hamstring problem.
Yep, stand by that.
And how, yeah. If you have weak glutes, you have an anterior pelvic tilt, you run with a heel strike, your hamstring is now doing a job it wasn't designed to do.
And then you have a hamstring problem, but you actually had a running technique. You have a hamstring symptom or a running technique problem or a glute activation problem. Yep.
You can dive deep into that one in the actual podcast, episode 67. 68, we talked about running surfaces, sand, road, grass, treadmills, why they're not all the same if you're doing your running work. So if you're doing sprints on a certain surface, they're going to be different, and the way your body handles it is going to be different to different surfaces and things like that.
And all I would say on that one is that I stand by that 1,000%. And I'm still seeing an alarming amount of people running on softer surfaces because they think it's safer and better. It's like, actually, it's not that effective for you. I'll give you an example today. So last night we had an amazing downpour of rain, and
so good.
It's just incredible. And at the moment, I can't run through my park because there's approximately 80 million people running through the park breathing heavily. So I've had to, because usually it's just me and this other guy with the handlebar mow, and I've had to give that up. So I'm running in the local lacrosse oval, which is really well drained, beautifully manicured. It's like a golf course. It's just brilliant.
Nice.
But I went to do my run today, and it was so soggy. It felt like I was running on sand. Like it was real. And so I said, you know what? I'm actually better off today running on concrete, because that sogginess is going to give me significant muscle soreness because there's no elastic recoil off it. So I did my run on concrete. And so, you know, I'm not saying that's advice for everyone to heed, but just that concept of sometimes soft is not better.
Yeah, there's a misconception that a softer surface is nicer on your joints, but the problem is it might be nicer on your joints and tendons, but that load still comes into your body. I still weigh 90 kilos when I run, so that doesn't change because the ground is softer. And so that load gets moved around, and particularly with soft surface, it moves into your muscles because you have longer contact time on the ground. So you absorb that energy further into the muscles away from the tendon, which is not great for soreness, for soft tissue injuries, for enthesis-based problems and sort of musculotendinous junction problems. And you can stir up shin splints and Achilles problems and runner's knee and stuff like that way.
So stand by that.
Yes. So treat each surface like it's got its own acute to chronic workload ratio.
Yeah.
It's probably a good way to think about it. Yeah. So if you've not done much running on sand and all of a sudden you go down to a beach house for a week, don't go do every run on sand. Maybe, you know, run a couple of 100 meters for fun on the beach, but stick to your normal surfaces.
Yeah. And grass is a great, just very quickly, grass is great. Normally, when grass is not soggy, when it's got a little bit of spring to it, a little bit of give, but a tiny bit of give, but a tiny bit of spring, and it's a little bit undulating, it's awesome.
Yep. I really like gravel tracks too.
Yeah, gravel's great.
It's my favourite. I like running on gravel. 69, we talked about gym debates. So this one I don't think we have to harp on this one, but we're talking about the idea of people become such and such guys. I'm a kettlebell person. I'm a powerlifting, blah, blah, blah. In strength and conditioning, if you're in powerlifting, powerlifting should be your tool because you compete in powerlifting. But if you're in S&C, use kettlebell for kettlebell exercises, use yoga for yoga exercises, use Pilates where it's appropriate. You don't have to be a zealot for one thing. You can be a blended coach. You can use a bit of everything as you go through your work.
Blended thing, that's become more, I think people are becoming more and more, I think, polarized, where it's like, I'm a blah, blah, blah person. I'm a blah, 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 you know, I'm a kettlebell guy. It's like, no, just, like, you never see a mechanic saying, I'm a spanner guy. Like
no one's arguing about the spanners. Yeah.
You know, like they use all the tools to fix the car. They're not limiting themselves to, I wouldn't touch that screwdriver. I'm a spanner guy. You know what? There's going to be times the screwdriver is going to be what you need. So yeah, that's got more
when you've
relevant.
got a screw.
More relevant than ever. Yeah. All right. Next.
Teaching the plyo step. The plyo step is a controversial topic for young coaches and for sports coaches sometimes when they hear about this first time. We're still hearing a few debates every now and again about people talking about a false step or a backward step before you then sprint forwards.
It's not about where you're stepping. It's about whether you're getting that explosive reaction, whether you make that back up. Like when you jump, like technically every time we jump, we're moving away from the target before you jump, you drop away. It's a backward step, then you come up. So what are you saying? We should not do that? We should just stand dead still and try and pogo up? Like, it's just a silly argument. Listen to the podcast. It's too hard. It's one that takes too long to wrap your head around to just do justice in a little snippet like this, but I stand by that.
Yeah, for sure. That was episode 70 for those who want to go check it out. It was only a 10-minute one. We got through that one quick. Although we are not going through this quick.
This is good though. I think it's good to touch back on these things. Yeah. If we get a chance to skip through a couple, let's try and skip through a couple that you use your judgment to hustle if you like.
Or in the interest of time, should we stop at 75? We have been going an hour.
Have we? Okay. Yeah.
Should we leave it not instead of half doing them? Should we spread it over 2 episodes?
I think it's probably worth it. I think a bit of an update. Yeah, let's do that. Done.
So let's go to, we've got 4 more. Let's go 5 more. Let's go to 75, and then next week we'll go 76 to 100. Next episode we'll go 76 to 100.
Yeah.
That also, Darren, buys us another topic for next week.
That's good. I love a topic. All right, go.
Excellent. All right, episode 71, we talked about rest and recovery. Do it. Sleep, eat good food, meditate, go to float tanks, get massages, foam roll, stretch, walk the dog, swim, do things that are easy so that your mind feels good and your body feels good.
Just keep doing that. My only concern is I always worry when I talk about recovery that maybe we underplayed the importance of time. Everything else is important, but time is the master thing with that stuff.
Hours and days.
Yeah,
exactly. We can skip past 72 because it's hamstrings and Nordics round 2.
Yeah,
we actually just talked about hamstrings again because they're really important. You'll understand if you go to our website and just type in hamstrings, you'll find about 10 podcasts. They're all great. They all build on each other. So let's not do that here.
No.
So we talked about hamstrings a lot, but one thing we haven't talked about was what we talked about in 73, which was shoulders. We don't talk about shoulders that much because here in Australia we have a lot more high-speed sports and change of direction sports, so we see a lot more lower body problems than upper body problems.
Well, we don't
Whereas
have
in America
baseball.
you've got... we don't have baseball, we don't have gridiron. Yeah, exactly.
What's changed in terms of our shoulder thing?
So much, but also it's really hard to define them as being a single thing.
Yeah. You know what? Let's circle back to that one next time. Let's let our thoughts. Yeah.
I'm not sure if my thoughts are going to develop in a week.
Well, just if you're not going to back yourself, at least back me. My thoughts are going to develop.
Okay.
No pressure.
One thing I've learned, just quickly before we move on, one thing I've learned is I've had a bit of a sore shoulder because I haven't been doing much overhead work.
Yeah, okay.
And I've been trying to get back into it and it's a little bit grumpy. And Amanda, my partner, who's an osteo, gave me some internal rotation work.
Yeah, okay.
Which I've never done before. And in 3 weeks, it's pretty much cleared it up. So I've been pretty happy with that.
That's pretty cool.
We can expand on that maybe next week if we remember.
Okay, good.
Episode 74, we talked about the Core Advantage internship. Where's the internship at, Durham?
Where is the internship at, Jacob? Well, the really good thing is that you put the work in to make it online. So even though our gym is currently closed, even though our interns can't come in here, their theoretical, practical learning has been able to continue. So they haven't been able to do the in-house actual coaching, but they've been able to continue learning all the way through. So that's good. And look, it's better than ever. It's arguably the thing I think we're most proud of that we've built. It's a really good resource. So the competition just keeps getting higher every year, like in terms of people applying for it, which is really cool. And it's a product people around the world are buying, which is also really cool. So I'm super proud of what you've done with it and what everyone's put into that, and really excited to see us continuing to push that forward because I think it's a world-class thing. So it's great.
Yeah.
Our marketing of it isn't world-class yet. The content of it is, it's world-class.
Yeah, once you're inside, it's once you take the dive and get inside, it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
But conveying that on the outside is a tricky.
That's not our wheelhouse yet.
Okay, exactly. All right, let's finish it off with this one today. Episode 75, we talked about tryouts and how to nail your tryouts. I reckon we did that one just before footy and basketball and soccer seasons kicked off, I reckon.
Yep. I think everything we said was true. And I think there's a lesson. It's actually a really nice exit point because there's a very relevant lesson at the moment, which is the whole point of the tryouts thing was don't try and get ready for it 2 days out from tryouts. Like if you had to summarize it, it was prepare early, be ready to dominate. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. That's the synopsis of it. And I think where we're at right now, particularly in Melbourne, Australia, is we're going to come out of the gate a lot quicker than people realise. Like things are going really well. And there's been a bit of a complacency with athletes. We'll be back in a few months. I think we're going to be back on way quicker than people are ready for. And a whole bunch of people are going to get caught out by the fact that they felt like they had 10 weeks to slowly rebuild themselves to competition standard. And it's actually going to turn out to be, 4 weeks or 5 weeks.
6, yeah.
I think it's going to come around a lot quicker and it's going to be this epidemic of injuries. Mick Hughes linked to a great study the other day. Did you see it about how in 2011 there was a 4.5 month NFL lockout, and there was like a quintupling of the Achilles injuries post that lockout? Yeah, because people just weren't getting exposed to load, and all of a sudden they were back in it. I think that's a legitimate threat to athletes. Is going to be significantly, like probably a doubled injury rate across the board. And so that triad idea of get ready early, like start tomorrow as though you're back at sport in 4 weeks. I think that's
with that kind of intensity and that kind of purpose.
Yeah, don't start as though you're full intensity tomorrow, but wherever you're at in your training process, start your rebuild as though it is T-minus 30 days. I think that's really, really important. That's how I'm thinking of it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like that. I think we'll leave that there. That's a good bit of action for everyone to leave the episode on.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and thanks for bearing with us as we navigate the vagaries of this internet-based thing. It's still a little clunky because Jacob and I are in different rooms, and so we're not quite as smooth as normal. But we appreciate you, those of you who've stuck it with us and listening. It's awesome, and we'll see you next week for more summaries. And before you go, hear from some of our alumni about our career transforming course, the online mentorship. Learn more about how you can join at our website.
I learnt the theory stuff at uni, but I didn't know how to apply it, and coming to Core Advantage was how I bridged that gap. So I knew the stuff, but I didn't know how to do the stuff.
It was something that I needed to do personally for my own development, and it's allowed me to work in elite sport for now 5 years. So it was a massive help.
I think mentorship is really important, and being able to ask questions all the time, and the Core Advantage course allows that because there is a big team of people that you can ask questions.
I get to train professional athletes every week, work really closely with professional athletes, which is awesome. A lot of the skills that I'm applying I learned through the program at Core Advantage.
It's not just something that you read and then think about and then go, how does that tie into everything? It's something practical that you can turn around and go, this is exactly how I'm going to apply it. And the concepts that you learn help you as a coach, as a professional, as a person. Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely go and do it.
To sign up for the online mentorship, head to coreadvantage.training/mentorship.